Good morning again, everybody. It's just so lovely that we're still meeting on a Monday morning. And today's talk, the subject, when Tara asked me what the subject's going to be, it just comes straight out of my mind, and then I think about it afterwards, and I think, well, that's an interesting subject. And this week's subject was the happiness within, and why that is so important. Because at the moment, there is an enormous strain on relationships of all types. And a lot of that is being blamed on the coronavirus. Yes, the coronavirus has affected, obviously, all of us and our relationships. But in fact, what it has done, hopefully, is it's accelerated its natural progression, whether that is a natural end or a natural beginning with this in the same relationship. So it really has been evident to me this week with clients, family and friends that a lot of relationships are actually now coming to an end, and we're finding that quite difficult because a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a partnership, it doesn't matter what that relationship was, it's filled a part in us that we have presumed has made us happy. So if that person does then no longer make us happy, we know we don't want that person necessarily within our vibrational space anymore, but we can't bear the thought of having that empty space. So we end up with unhappy relationships and we put up with them. And this week is very much about looking back into your childhood and finding out what happened back there. And for us, about our age, or you know, some of you are 10, 15 years younger, we've done all the childhood bits, we've looked at the childhood, but in fact, we're still carrying an awful lot of energy balls from that. So if in your childhood you spent a lot of time alone, you may feel now that you need people around you to show you who you are and your identity. So you need always to be surrounded by people. Now that's obviously been a problem with the coronavirus because you're not surrounded by people. If you are somebody who's always been with people and you like being alone, you then feel quite guilty because actually now it's a lovely time for you to be alone. But when you do speak to somebody, the talking in even is more intense because you're either on a Zoom meeting or you're talking more on the phone. Now, for a lot of relationships, that's expanded the relationship. It's helped the relationship. But for an awful lot, it has shown the relationships to true colours. And from that vein, the next step is to allow that friendship relationship to go. And therein lies the childhood problem. Because to let something go or to push something out could cause a huge fear coming up in us from childhood. So if, for instance, you had parents who are always in conflict, you would rather not ever get into a conflicting relationship. You will not want the conflict that you perceive is going to happen if you finish a relationship. You will then, your subconscious mind will do anything to persuade you to keep the relationship so that you don't have to go into that conflict. But the interesting thing is that we have vibrated to us, magnetized to ourselves, that vibration of the stuff that was going on in our childhood. So, for instance, if you had an absent father, when you went to meet your partner, he's more or less likely to be and turn out to be an absent person. If your mother was incredibly bossy, you would magnetize to yourself someone very, very similar. And then because they were very, very similar and they're causing your fear and pain. So supposing you had a mother who was of a nervous disposition and you had to creep around and you didn't cause any upset and you were always just the little girl and you had to be the good girl or the good boy just to keep your mother safe. You as an adult you will still carry those emotions, those feelings, those ways of dealing with things. Do you see? May I have some nods? Yeah, now you all look like nods in the back of the car. You know, there's nodding dogs in this Winston. So we're actually attracting to ourselves, obviously in the past, all the people that are going to vibrate at the same vibration that we've been vibrating for all our lives. So this is a real time to say, right, if there is a relationship that is finishing, completing, ending, and that can be actually a relationship with a job, it can be a relationship with a girlfriend, it can be a relationship sister, brother. A relationship covers relationships with you. If that relationship of whatever type that is no longer suits you, but you're finding it difficult to let go, that is the interesting thing. Do you see? It's not the person you can't let go of that's interesting. It's why it's that little bit of I can't let go because. Do you understand? And our subconscious mind, who's craving to keep us safe all the time, says it's safer to be in this relationship than it is to maybe cause anger or cause upset, or somewhere in there you have to have manners, so you can't tell somebody to pee off because it's not in your nature, it isn't in your makeup. And the other thing is, of course, as kind, loving people, we don't want to cause pain. And that, again, is really difficult. If we think that by finishing something is going to cause somebody else pain, that's exactly what we just really don't want to do. So that makes it even more painful. And it gets all very tied up, and the days go by, and that person that you're trying to part company with understand you're trying to, from a soul point of view, you're trying to part company, and they will do one of two things. They will either come out with all their faults and say, yes, I realise I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I'm so sorry, I'm going to change, and you believe them, and you go around again. Or they deny everything and make everything your fault, so you end up feeling the guilty party. Either way, it's not very clean. Do you see? This is why we have to take it right back and say, actually, what, black and white, good and bad, smelly and beautiful, what does this relationship now give to me? Because if we are left with a gap, that is our biggest fear. As human beings, we do not like being alone, and nor should we be alone. However, if you have your world full of toxic people because you haven't yet learned to honor yourself enough not to have toxic people in your life, you are going to magnetize them to yourself so much now. So if you have an ex who is really being horrible to you, for instance, then it's time to step up, go back in your power, and rather than being bullied anymore, learn the word no, learn your boundaries, learn to hold your own space where that space used to be, because we have learned to allow other people to complete us, or so we think. So if we don't think we're very beautiful, having somebody in our life telling us every day that we're beautiful fills that gap. And then we never have to think about it. We can secretly think we're really, really ugly, but because somebody else is telling us we're beautiful, that's okay. Now we can't get away with that anymore. Do you understand? Because we're asked to see our own beauty within. But actually what we're seeing the last few days is our own unhappiness rising again. And it's a really weird one, because we kind of got used to this new normality of being peaceful and quiet and in our own space. And now it's all opening back up. Anything else is rumbling up as well. So if you don't like living alone, for instance, but that you've been surrounded by people, over your children or your spouse or whatever, over the last 13, 14 weeks, you haven't had to look at yourself at all, because you've filled all your own gaps. Other people have filled your gaps because they've been around you all the time. So you look out and you think, yeah, they're all happy, that makes me happy. Good, they're all happy, I'm happy. The moment all of that goes, you're then left with a gap that says, oh shit, I'm unhappy. I didn't realize I was unhappy. And then you look out again and say, oh, well, I'm not happy because these people aren't here giving me the feed that I need. It's all now down to coming back into this centering of being happy, regardless of what's going on. And that is so fearful. And fear is rising its head in all sorts of ways. Wherever you look, somebody's being triggered by this fear. My mother has an interesting garden set up now that you can go around the bank, and she has a bucket of water, and she asks you to wash your hands before you go into her garden. And she had a visitor yesterday, and it really, really upset him because she asked him to wash his hands. And we were talking about it this morning. I said, my God, that's really interesting, isn't it? How many people would actually get upset by being asked to wash your hands? To us, because it's not in our psyche, it doesn't make sense. But I know that person, and I know that he had quite a bossy mum, and all his girlfriends have been quite bossy. So he's obviously feeling that bossiness, and because he can't throw it out anywhere else, the washing of the hands was the straw that broke the camel's back. How dare it? And you can almost imagine his internal dialogue. Oh, how dare I be bossed around again? I can't believe I'm being told what to do. I haven't got control of my own life. All of that going round and round to be triggered to bring this stuff up. The fear of being controlled by somebody else, the fear of not being himself, all by a request to wash hands. Isn't it fascinating? I find that fascinating. And what I do find fascinating also is that particular person isn't willing to look at that. He's not willing to look at it. He won't, will he? He'd just go away and think, well, aren't we? Why have to? But from when you're in a situation where you want to fill your own gap, you would walk away and think, well, what triggered in me? So I had to sort of calm my mum down, and she says, am I really being a bad person asking people to wash their hands? I said, no, it's nothing to do with you at all. Nothing to do with you at all. But look what it triggered in her. This sudden feeling that she's not enough, or she's done something wrong, she's going to upset somebody. Oh my God, that her world's going to fall apart. Do you see how easily this is like a domino situation comes along? Well, when you're aware of it, when you're aware of what you are feeling, then you can start looking at why I am feeling incredibly vulnerable. We don't like feeling vulnerable. We're not vulnerable creatures, so we tend to, in vulnerability, we're either shut ourselves off completely and say, well, I'm all right on my own, I'm coping very well, or we anxiously cling to someone else. Neither is very healthy. And I've always described it really as two people. When we're first attracting people to us, whoever they are, we are. Can you see that? Yes. We're like half a person here, and we're looking for another half a person to make us whole. And of course, these two just don't fit. They just don't fit. And we think that's detrimental, but in fact, it really isn't, because what we'll do is split up eventually from that person. And when we find ourselves, we can be a really complete person. Then this person can be a person, and you have two people walking side by side, rather than expecting that other person to make you feel the way you want to feel. Because we rely on other people to keep us feeling the way we want to feel. So if you have a whole day when you don't even say good morning to somebody, and you're not feeling very confident in yourself, by the time you go to bed at night, you'll be really depressed, because you haven't had any input to fill your own circle of emotions. And isn't it lovely now that we're getting rid of the emotions that no longer serve us? So every time you're triggered and a fear comes up of some description, we'll look at that fear, because it's not real. It's not real. It's like cutting yourself years and years ago. You'll remember the incident. You'll remember how you felt about it, but you don't remember the actual pain, because you can't go back to the pain of cutting yourself, but you can go back to the emotion of it. So you might long ago have got over the actual cut, but the emotion and the fear of falling off the wall and knocking out your teeth is still there. So someone will come along and you'll see a little child fall over, and all that fear of that child falling over comes up, and you can think, well, that was an overreaction. Why did I react like that? It was an overreaction to a little child just falling over. And a flash of an image of you falling off a wall at 4 or whatever it was will suddenly come up, and you think, that's why all that fear came up, because I remember that. Then you recognise the fear, and you say, so I can just let that go. Well, gosh, and just let that go then. That's amazing. and it's getting faster. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but things are coming at us faster and faster. So if you're one that has finally left a dodgy marriage and that partner's coming back at you, you think, oh my God, I thought I've done all this. Actually, it's just to say, have you done all this? Oh yes, I have. I now have my boundaries, I now have my borders, and I don't need this person's approval of me to make me feel okay. Because we have had this push me, pull you business with people so that they can literally pull out our stuff and we can pull out theirs. The job is done now, and we now need to complete ourselves. And that means being happy if we're on our own, also happy when we're with somebody else. Such a sweet spot. We all have friends, I'm sure, that it doesn't matter what they do, what they say, what they look like, you just simply love them unconditionally anyway. How about we did that for ourselves? Do you ever look in the mirror and you say, oh yeah, unconditionally now? Or do you look at yourself and think, oh, I still got another 10 pounds to lose, or, you know, I'm going grey, look at this, I used to be a good looking fellow in my younger days, eh? Do you see, the moment we get up, we start this almost as though, as long as we can do it to ourselves, nobody can do it any further. As long as we can make ourselves feel small, nobody else can make us feel any smaller. But we need to raise in our power now. We need just to be this lovely completion. And what's so lovely is if you are in a position that you would really love to share your life with somebody else now, what is so beautiful is, and I was explaining this to Tara the other day about how I perceive soulmates and twin flames. And if you imagine a mountain like that, and we've come in, ignore these two for a minute, we've come in as souls on the mountain. Now, if you have a twin flame and you met when you were, and some people do, don't they? They met when they're 10 years old and they carry on their life to the top. They spend their life together. So they have the safety of themselves, if you like. Do you want me to retract a bit? If as a soul coming in, you can say split into two, into five, into whatever. This is a very linear explanation of this, but just sort of bear with me. If you're a man, you say you come down this side, and if you're a lady, you come down that side, whatever. So if you came down in your entirety, and you came down like this, met somebody at 10, that, you know, we all know those couples that have stuck together, they haven't spent a night apart, they've never had a row, all of that sort of thing. It's because they're themselves. They're just themselves. There's no rub in there. Do you see? They're already complete. And in fact, this type of people tend to come this lifetime as stability for other people that aren't in that situation. So you have something to look at and think, yeah, actually, that's unconditional love. My parents met when they were younger. The moment they met, that was it. There's never anybody else for them. So all of their children, their grandchildren, unconditional love, that's what it looks like. A lot of people don't have that when they're born. So anyway, come back to this. Some of us, we said, right, well, we still got a few bits and pieces we'd like to sort out this lifetime. And your counterpart says, yeah, I've got a few bits and pieces I'd like to sort out this lifetime. Now, you might meet in primary school and then split up because you haven't had the experiences that you need to bring yourself together here. Do you see? Because you can't do it together because you're already the one. Am I making sense? So if you come down and you've met the one already, you've kind of, there's nothing else to do within that. It's all really quite smooth. I'm not saying there's not problems within, or challenges rather than problems. I'm not saying there's not challenges within that relationship, but you just simply know they're together. Now, there's some of us that came the hard route, and we said, actually, I'll come down one side, you come down the other, and we'll just keep going through all these different people to reach our mountaintop where we can sit comfortably, which is why I've kept this same picture going, in this circle at the top. And then when you finish your journey, and I finish my journey, then we can spend the rest of the journey together. But you wouldn't want to meet this partner here when you've still got all the shit to sort out, because it would be too intense. It would be too intense. It's too close. So we meet various different people on our journey to experience these various things with. Do you see? Fascinating, isn't it? So if you're in a place now where you're alone, which a lot of us are now, a lot of us are, because we've done this separate bit, and we're almost here, but we might have a couple of ties and bits and pieces left, so that when we meet that new person, and there will be a new person, it won't be somebody here promising that they can make it here, because you wouldn't have met them here if they were going to meet you here. Do you see? I'm not saying people can't change, because they can, but this is a different scenario that I'm explaining at the moment. So what we do is we do the rest of this journey on our own. So we suddenly find that, say this is you here, and you've met all this, and suddenly you find you're here. And being here on your own here is so much more pleasurable than being down here with anybody else. But it doesn't make you a recluse or a loner. It just makes you a happy person on your own. Ta-da! Yeah? You're just a happy person on your own. Then, when this person's done whatever they need to do, and they're a happy person, all on their own, there we have. All these issues, all these fears, all this insecurity, all this not enoughness has already been cleared, because you don't want to meet somebody else to put you through that again, unless you do. Do you see? And if you've been in marriage a long, long time, and you've got through, there are situations when you can work through all this stuff and get here together. So it's hard slog, but you reach that. Put a hand up. Yes, I thought so. Tara.
I just thought I'd there's a question that has come in saying, but if he says he will change and make big changes. So I just thought that was quite good to bring that question up there.
Oh, it's a fabulous one. Yeah, it's a fabulous one. Somebody will come in here, and you'll meet them here, and they treat you like absolute whatever, right? Or they're just not right. And then they suddenly realize they're losing you, and they say they're going to change. Personally, I wouldn't believe them, because they've already shown you who they are. Now, I'm not saying people can't improve themselves or change, but if somebody's incredibly angry, for instance, say if somebody was incredibly angry and they lost their temper every single time somebody else triggered their temper, they can't suddenly not have a temper, because it hasn't been brought up to be released. They haven't looked at why they have a temper. They're just saying, I see me having a temper upsets you, I won't have a temper anymore. Or they might be a sulker, and they say, well, I won't sulk anymore because you don't like me dealing with it like that, so I won't do that anymore. And what's happening, bless them, they might even believe it, but they're actually just suppressing all their stuff to be who they think you want them to be, because they don't want to lose you, because you're filling the gaps that they have. Do you see? And you are filling more of their gap than you are of theirs. So they're going to make all sorts of promises that they can change. But there's not one of us that can just suddenly say something to us and we just say, oh, well, I'll change that then. We have to go through the process of wanting to change it, feeling it again, bringing it up, sorting it out. Do you see? So if you've got somebody who's not quite of the understanding consciousness, and they suddenly make all these things that they're going to change, all that would happen is that you would go through this, they would do their utmost to change, because they really would believe themselves. They really would believe that they want to change for you and all that. But can you feel the reasons behind it are just screwy? They would want to change for you. Now, it's a very third dimensional relationship when somebody's willing to change for you. Are you willing to change for anybody else? If someone said, oh, well, if you change that about you and change that about you, you can be my love. No, that's not going to work. But they're prepared to change their behavior, or they think they are, to get you back into where they are comfortable with their game. And if I would be very, 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 very cautious, because they will be able to do it for maybe 3 months. Probably not even that long at the moment, because everything's so accelerated. So you think, oh, good, they've completed themselves. They're going to go to therapy and deal with their anger management, or they've talked to somebody about that and they see the error of their ways. They can probably see the error of their ways, but they haven't dealt with it. So all they're saying is, can I come back into your vibration to deal with it? Now, if you haven't dealt with what you need to deal with in that, which is the fear of letting somebody go, you're going to be back down here very, very quickly, because you thought you were here and then you're back here. But you need to ask yourself the question, why would you want to do that? When someone shows you who they are, believe them. It's one of the strongest, I can't remember where I heard that from, but it's such a powerful, powerful sentence. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When they tell you who they're going to be, don't give them a pinch of salt, because the proof will be in the pudding. And if someone chooses to listen to these promises and believe the promises, what I would suggest is do that, but be aware that you're going round again. Be aware that you're going to go round again. Now, there are others that they're just meeting each other in the middle, if you like. Maybe we're going to meet each other in the middle and do this last bit of journey together. Yes, then each one moves up within whatever instance comes up. So suppose there was an anger issue here. Somebody didn't like somebody being angry with them. That was frightening from the childhood, and this person is angry. They would then spark that again and be able to, between them, shift that. But if you've cleared that, you don't want to go back and shift it for somebody else necessarily. Do you see? And if you've got this draw back to here, it's because you haven't yet filled your own gaps. And it's the filling of the gaps that is going to be for all of us, I think, if we haven't learned to enjoy that. It's the filling of the gaps that will pull us back into old type relationships, friendships that are takers. You know, we've all got those friends that just take, you know, their phone for 3 hours and not ask you how you are. And yet, because you don't have many people around you, you might want that friendship and cling to it with anxiety. Do you see? Because without that friendship, so you don't want to let that friendship go because it leaves you alone. When you're complete, you just say, do I want that? No, I don't want that. But then you come back into all the other fears of letting someone go. It happened to me last week. Somebody came back into my life that I had met in the mental hospital. I don't like calling it a psychiatric hospital, let's put it that way. It wasn't a mental hospital, we went in the psychiatric hospital, and they came back in my life. They were still around about here. And there was the people pleaser, you know, in you. We're all people pleasers. People pleaser in me came into this friendship again, realizing that person hadn't changed at all. So rather than come back in and just put up with it anymore, I said, no thanks. Lovely to see you, cheerio. The confidence to do it. When you're a people pleaser, which you will learn to be if you were always the good little boy, if you were the one, mummy's little boy who always ran and got the paper or her slippers, or if you were a people pleaser, you just love that feeling of Peter Piper, pleasing people, you can't move out of this because you're stuck in your people pleasing. You're stuck in the fear of saying to somebody, no, I don't want your energy in my life anymore. So that's again a really good situation when you look back. But actually, on a personal note, writing that text saying no, the stuff that came up, that, oh my God, I'm going to upset this person, maybe they're going to commit suicide. You know, you sort of take it to the nth degree, that we are responsible for their happiness. Until you realise that actually you having your boundaries and saying, no, I don't want you in my life, is actually a favour to them anyway, because you're then putting them into the position where they need to be. So if you're holding on to a relationship for any other reason than love, then I've lost my trace. Then it's time to really say, no more. Did that answer that question, do you think, Tara?
Just waiting for the thumbs up in the chat box. Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's like a minefield at the moment. It really is. It's a minefield. It is a minefield, and it's an area we've never been here before. We've never been in this vibrational space before. And of course, with the virus, every single relationship that you have around you. Your relationship with your house, your relationship with your birds in the garden's changed, your relationship with your pets if you have them. Everything's changed, haven't they? Everything. Relationship with your children has changed. Now is the time, and particularly with the solstice yesterday when it was the longest day, so you have the light to shine on every area. As I said yesterday, it's worth getting your torch and seeing where you're shining your light. Are you hankering over somebody who used to fill a gap and wasting your God-given energy and time and space on something that used to be? Or are you enjoying the gap that that person has now left and filling it with your own enjoyment? Because once you're filling it with your own enjoyment, the other person who's done their journey can also come in and fill their other enjoyment. If you think you're destined to be on your own, but secretly in your heart you don't want to be on your own, the universe gets the message that you don't want to be on your own, and you will meet this person when that time is right. But isn't it much nicer to think that you're going to have someone that comes and walks next to you, who's your companion, that doesn't rely on you for their identity, and you don't have to rely on them for yours? It's an exciting time, but we have to let something go to move into the next level of vibrational people that we're going to meet. We need to. And as I said, this week, for some reason or other, they're really harping on about the childhood issues. How did your parents deal with conflict? How did your parents deal with what they say is loving and kind? You know, so some people loving and kind is very different from other people's loving right, I'll leave it behind. So if you were somebody who's, say your parents always went out and you were an only child and they went out, well, I think we've talked about this before, you're always going to feel that sense of loss when somebody leaves you. Well, that would be enough over a lifetime not to want anybody to ever leave you. So a unhealthy relationship is more satisfactory than the pain that you felt all those years ago, built up. You don't want to look at the pain of someone leaving you. You just know you don't want that person to leave you, however mismatched they are. That's why it's really interesting now not to dig up the parents, not dig up the childhood, because most of them did the best they could with what they had available. But now looking in retrospect, you can see, oh, I can see why their behaviour would have had this knock-on effect with me, why I don't want the confrontation. If you had somebody, say again, say you had a mother who threatened to, through things. That's a good one. When you're 2 and you hear glass smashed across the room, you think that person could kill you. You don't understand it's just your mother having a temper. So you will, for the rest of your life, avoid anything confrontational that might bring that up in anybody at all. So you keep the lid on that. So you keep unhealthy relationships, because the alternative, and girlfriends actually even have a lot of this going on with the girlfriend situation, as well as I'm saying, sorry Jeff, I don't mean that detrimental to you. There's an awful lot of female faces. A men situation as well, but men are much clearer on things. Men tend to keep their vibration down here and their thoughts up somewhere else. It's all very cut and dried. Do you agree, Jeff? Things are different for men. However, because of the feminine rising, men are having quite a difficult time, because these fears are coming up, as in the man who wouldn't wash his hands in my mother's garden. Yeah, that's a thing that's coming up now. So Jeff here, bless him, is a head of the party, if you like, but giving other men permission to be able to feel, to be able to love freely, to be able to be spiritual, if you like. But it's been a hard slog for all of us. And what's happening also is these people that we're leaving behind are going into huge fear because we've rejected them. So if you've just divorced somebody or you've just left somebody, all of their fears are going to come up, and they're going to try and get you back in any way they can. anyway. It is a clever little game. But once you recognise that you don't actually want that person in your life because it's not good for you, it makes no odds what they're doing here. It makes no odds. But if you feel yourself being put down, rather than go, oh no, I'm thinking about going back with this person or seeing this person again or picking up that phone to her one more time, whatever it is, go, oh my God, what's that gap I'm hoping that that person will fill? Oh, well, they always make me feel good about my cooking, or they always make me feel good about something or other. I want them in my life. No, you don't. Wouldn't it be better to be here? And you can meet so many other friends and people around you. And if there's a gap, I think this is one of the hardest things, that when you let all this go, there's actually a gap before before a new vibration of people come in. And that gets quite lonely again. It's quite a lonely time if you're prone to loneliness, because suddenly you feel as though you've lost all your contemporaries, all the people around you. They're dropping like flies. You start questioning yourself. What does it mean? You know, I'm on my own now. Actually, it is you. It's you saying, I prefer a different caliber of people now, a different vibration of people. But you can only do that when you've decided you don't want the abusive people in your life anymore. And if these are getting angry, this lot, yeah, I'd get out the way anyway. I get out of the way because it's peaceful here and it's not so peaceful. So the happiness within, we have all the tools in here to either be really unhappy within or really happy within, taking everybody out the picture. If we can get to happy within, you can then pull into your picture anybody and anything who makes you happier, because you've already filled your own tank. And it's such a sweet spot to be. That's what I'm saying. It's so adorable when you have then friends and people around you in the same vibration. So you have a challenge or a problem, you can phone them. They're not basing their friendship on that. They're just helping you with that challenge or problem. Do you see? And vice versa. Because we like people. We like people around. We like a support system. We like to give our support. But the difference in vibration from a control freak, possessive, narcissistic person and somebody who wants love and support is incredibly different, isn't it? And there's a lot of powerful people at the moment losing their power, so they're going to get more bullyish. They're going to get louder, unless they choose not to. You see, I've seen a lot of people again around me, and they're moving through that. They're breaking their own little barriers down, particularly men. Are softening how they're feeling, softening. Things are coming, just raising a little bit for everybody. So when you wake up in the morning, I always say in the morning, because that's when we have a fresh start, isn't it? You know, we always say, oh, it'll be different tomorrow. We can say, right, we're going to look at the clock, and at 11 o'clock, I'm going to start my new self. Am I happy in myself today? Whatever else happens outside, how do I feel inside? If you can ask yourself that question once an hour, how do I feel right now? What's swayed who I am? What's made me feel emptier? What's made me feel fuller? Get to know yourself a lot more. This is the time. This is the time to get to know ourselves, rather than rushing out to getting always other people, getting to other people. Once we can fill ourselves, we don't need other people, but other people are lovely to have around. The difference is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And that fear of being alone for a spiritualist, for spiritual people, is probably one of the deepest fears, because we have, in not just this lifetime, but in previous lifetime, been so cast out and been on our own, with our own thoughts, with our feelings, with our own different ways of looking at things. We have been very lonely. So as soon as we meet somebody else who makes us feel better, we're going to cling to them as well. So that's the secret, is just say, oh, isn't it lovely that I've met such a happy person? I love that. How many people know a really happy person? Hands up. Does anybody know a really happy person? Yeah. Are you a really happy person? Hands up. Yeah. Very few. Yeah, we're nearly there, aren't we? We're so close now. We're so close now, which is why I love these talks, because we can just look at these little things. Tara?
So this is a question from me: how to keep our vibration high, how to keep ourselves happy. Any tips?
Yeah, it's to not pretend. Allow you to be you all day long. Try and find, say you've got 4 hours this afternoon when you've got a complete gap. Yeah, be interested in yourself. So you say, right, how do I feel now? Well, actually, I've just come off this talk and I'm feeling quite chirpy. Okay, so out of 10, how are you feeling within yourself? Well, I feel really content. I've got things to think about. Yeah, so maybe an 9 out of 10. Fantastic. Now, you might have a couple of phone calls or a client or something else, and in an hour's time, you say, well, how do I feel now? Oh, 5 out of 10. What happened there? What did I allow that? And you bring it back up again, because you've now separated what brought you down, rather than go down and stay down. Do you understand? So you know, you're aware now that something's taken you out of your happy state. Because actually, when this is solidified and you are in your happy state, very little can take you out of it, because everything's quite amusing or interesting, because it's not triggering anything in you. It's just simply not. If client say phones and tells you how upset they are, if you're already quite upset about something, you're going to really buy into that upset, and that will bring your vibration down. If you're here, you're not being smug and unkind, you're just actually being far more beneficial to that person by staying in your own space and allowing that person to be what they are. But if you've brought your stuff down here, it means that there's something in you that still needs to be brought up. Oh, that person made me sad because she's just lost her mum. Oh, I'm feeling sad because, oh, I lost my dog last year. Do you see? It's reminding me of that. So you might have some grief left with the dog, and it's being interested in why your emotions go up and down, and what gives you the ability, what has the power to do that for you. Is it a television program? Is it a friend? Is it the rain? You know, are you happy when the sun shines and not when it rains? Are you that easily swayed? I'm not suggesting we're all Buddha and just sit and watch everything come and go, but if we aim for that almost peace, do you see, that when nothing actually triggers us or grabs onto us or pulls us in, we literally can watch it as though what's happening is on a stage and we're watching it as a play. When our energy dips, it's because we've got on the stage. We jump on the stage and we become part of the play, our energy will dip. If we stay in the audience and watch it all go on with interest, your energy stays where it is. It's all still going on, you just haven't gone onto the stage and become embroiled in it. And that's when you know you have a dip. So supposing, for instance, and there's going to be a lot of this, supposing there's a divorce going through, you're happy as Larry, the sun's shining, you've got to see a friend this afternoon, and then your divorce papers arrive. Are you going to allow those divorce papers to bring your energy down, or are they just divorce papers? Because that's in the flow of things. That's how we're going to get. That's interesting, my divorce papers are coming, and I'm going out with my friend this afternoon. If you think, oh no, my divorce papers, I'm losing something, and it sends you back down here, then you think, why does that upset me so much when that was such an unhealthy relationship? I'm letting it go. Do you see? You become curious, so you have no time to get bored because you're asking yourself questions all the time. If you ever have a gap in the day, set yourself up some questions. What do I feel about? What do I feel about flying to New Zealand? What a strange question, but ask yourself that. What do you feel about flying to New Zealand? Do you see? You might learn something about yourself that you've never asked yourself before. And the more you know yourself, the more you can clear out the vibrations of not knowing yourself. And that's where the fear comes from, because you don't know who you are in that fearful situation. You just don't want it. You're going to complete what my nephew calls white noise. You just go blank and into that fear with somebody, especially if it's confrontation. If you're someone who hates confrontation because that's how your parents dealt with things, the moment you feel confrontation, you're going to go into white noise. You're going to blank down. You're going to go into a 3-year-old shutdown. But not anymore. Not anymore. Because you're not into confrontation. You're just having a discussion. No. Yeah, no. Do you see? You're only confronting something if you're arguing for your space, your time. There's no room for arguments, is there? Apart from when your kids don't empty the dishwasher.
I was just about to say that. It's children, usually teenage children, that can really, you think you're in a really good mood and then suddenly bang. So yeah, it's what.
Or not. You see, again, if you have that set up within your system, in your belief system, in your physical system, that if they don't do what you've asked them to do, something terrible is going to happen. You might not realize that you've got that something terrible is going to happen. You're just looking at the fact that they're not doing it. Yeah? Do you see? So you'll be really angry with them not doing it, but actually you're saying, oh, because that means they don't love me. And if I'm not loved, do you understand? I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying that's what happens, is that you need to look further than that and say, right, okay, this has really triggered me into frustration and anger and lack of control and all that. Well, what's all that about? Where does that come from? Go back into your childhood. Or the fear of not being respected, the fear of not being listened to, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being on my own, the fear of having to manage on my own. Do you see all of that from one child not doing the dishwasher? You could find so much out about yourself. And then when they come down for tea, you say, no, I'm sorry, you can only eat off that dirty plate because so-and-so didn't put the dishwasher on. You just deal with it like that. You deal with it with humour, not with anger. Yeah, they don't get clean plates until somebody else let them get on with it. Just do it. You keep your clean plate. Do you see? There's so many other ways of not hitting this barrier every single time. There's a different way for you to deal with it. I'm not talking to you personally, but it's a different way one can deal with it when one recognises that you deal with the things the same way time after time after time, and you're left feelings with the same feeling time after time after time. Do something differently. Look at what it is underneath that's really, really getting to you, and then you can deal with the surface thing, the trigger thing, with humour. Okay, humour, it absolutely is. It's just the best thing, particularly with teenagers, because they hate being laughed at. Don't they? Mm. I have no idea what the time is.
It is 10 to 11.
Okay, so are there any questions at all in the chat?
Yeah, just let me check now.
In the while you're looking at that, Tara, in the Daily Mail yesterday, I picked up this thing here, and it's a Dear Belle. You know, one of these things. It says, I finally got divorced 5 years ago after 15 years to a vile man. Then soon I met what seemed like the perfect man, and everything was great until 6 months later he started to change. I no longer had contact with friends, and he was always checking up on me. He'd moved in and stopped paying towards anything, though he's a much higher earner. And so it goes on. We then split up. Then he said he was going to change because he'd been to therapy. It says all down here, yeah? And now he's back in. He says he's not committed. He tells her it's all her fault, and she ought to get on with it. And what should she do? So in this little letter here, she's had him back 3 times. 3 times he's promised that he's paid his debts, he's done this, he's done that, and she takes him back. Now, yet, she's not asking herself why she's not taking him back. She's saying she feels, why do I feel guilty and shame? Do you see where we're at? Now, yes, that's a very third-dimensional letter, but it's happening on every single level of us. It's like, he's treating me really badly. When's he going to change? I can feel better when this person changes. And he doesn't change, so I feel awful. That's the dichotomy we have at the moment. So if you're waiting, coming back to that question, supposing they say they're going to change, and you're waiting for them to change to make you feel happy, you're in trouble. Because you have, if you're at that stage, love them however they are, whoever they are, not because you think they're going to change. And that's that. Do you see that's happening all over now? That is that. Why do people put up with it? Because of fear. Where does that fear come from? Childhood. Our childhood have a lot to answer for. And I say by this age, we've kind of wiped that out and said, well, we've dealt with everything from our childhood. But these little niggly bits are really now worth coming up. And it's not to blame. Please don't think I'm saying you ought to blame your mum, blame your dad, blame your grandparents. Absolutely not. You're just looking at how you, as a child, learnt to deal with certain situations, how as a child you took on certain feelings when certain things happened, and now decide whether you want to be that person or not, whether you want to continue to be that person or not. And that's what that person's saying. I don't want to be this person anymore, but I feel guilty because he can't live without me, or he, third dimensional stuff. Tara?
Yeah, sorry, just another question there. It says, but if I can see that I have the problems that I need to change, what, I'm trying to word this properly as she's written it, how does, if I can see that I have problems, say of anger, how would, I know I need to change something, so I can do that. Yeah, so that's...
Yeah. Or not, because we're just as guilty. If you're the angry one and you're promising to change for somebody else, you're not going to be doing it for somebody else. When you actually say, yeah, I really do have an anger problem, will you just leave me alone now, please, while I sort myself out and look at what that already is? Or you might be able to discuss it with them, do you see? And then you grow together. This is what I'm saying. If you're that close to completion, you'd be able to discuss it together. But when you're here, it's just too much of a power struggle. And you're right, if the anger is in you, then take yourself out of the picture. Take yourself away. Don't keep subjecting them to be your test pilot. And get to the bottom of that anger. Get right to where it came from. Where does it stem from? I doubt if there's much anger left in anybody listening to this right now. Not to the extent that you're talking about. Not to that control, holding on to somebody, dangerously controlling, which is a lot of people are dangerously controlling. But I doubt anybody listening to this at this level would be that person. But bouts of anger, absolutely. Bouts of anger and frustration. You can go and think, wow, what triggered me on that bout of anger? I get that, right. But don't expect them to wait around. If you're working with it together, lovely. Do you see? Do you think that answered that question?
Yeah, I'm just checking. Yes, that does.
Sorry, Tara.
No, I've just said fabulous. Is there anything else that you'd like to just add, Wendy? That was really interesting.
I think it'd be really interesting to come off this Zoom in a minute and say, right, out of a picture of 10 out of 10, how content and why peaceful? If nothing changed in my life, how peaceful and content am I? Yeah. And then if you say, well, I'll be far more peaceful and content if my Porsche arrived, then you know that you still have a little bit of work, because to be peaceful and content inside, happiness inside, and have a look and see if there's unhappiness inside. And that's how I would finish this today and say, right, if there is still unhappiness inside me, it's my unhappiness. Own it. It's my unhappiness. It's not that person's. It's not because they're doing that. It's not because I haven't that, or I want that and it's not here. If you're unhappy inside, own it. This is my unhappiness. Fantastic. I've got five out of 10 is happy. 5 out of 10 is unhappy. Let's see what we can do to fill that without looking outwards for it. And for some reason or other, they're showing me pencil and paper. So do some writing, do some drawing, do some sketching, not to show anybody, not to sell your pictures in a gallery, just to find out more of who you are. What happens if I draw a ladybird and nobody else is going to look at it? You know, you find out who you are drawing a ladybird. Find out more about you. Find out more about you. If you're fed up one day, sit and being fed up and think, well, I'm really fed up. What does fed up feel like? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What can I do not to be fed up? Put some music on, dance. Put some music in your head, dance. But do not rely on someone else to change to make you happy. And I think that's the whole message today is, if you have someone who is making you unhappy right now, believe them. They're going to make you unhappy continually.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you.